we've made childhood much more complicated than it needs to be. This week I was reminded that some of the biggest childhood memories are often created from the simplest moments. Hi everyone, I'm Steff and welcome to the Family Daycare Diaries. If you're new here, I've spent more than 18 years working in early childhood education. During that time, I've worked in long daycare, as a family daycare coordinator, and now as a family daycare educator. This space is where I share the things I've learned along the way, the real moments, the meaningful lessons, and the little experiences that often teach us the most. So, on that note, let's get into today's diary entry. This week we celebrated Pyjama Day, and it turned out to be one of those days that reminded me why I love what I do. When people hear Pyjama Day, they often imagine a huge setup with lots of decorations and activities. Ours was the complete opposite. We pushed some furniture aside, laid out a few blankets and pillows, gathered some teddies, put on a movie about penguins, and turned our lounge room into a cinema. It was incredibly simple, but watching the children made me realize something that I think we sometimes forget as adults. The best childhood memories really come from expensive toys and elaborate activities. More often than not, they're created through simple experiences where children have the freedom to imagine, create, and be completely present. It actually got me thinking about my own childhood. When I look back, I don't remember every toy I had or every present I was given. What I do remember is the moments that felt special. The afternoons spent outside climbing trees, doing cartwheels in the backyard, exploring, and simply having the freedom to play. I think that's one of the beautiful things about childhood. It's often the simple everyday moments that stay with us long after we've forgotten everything else. I think we live in a world where there's so much pressure on both parents and educators to constantly do more. Social media is filled with beautiful play spaces, incredible activities, and resources that look amazing. And while I love seeing those ideas, I sometimes worry they've made us believe that's what children need to have a meaningful childhood. The reality is that children don't remember whether the decorations matched or whether the activity cost a lot of money. They remember how they felt. They remember laughing with their friends, feeling included, solving problems together, and having adults who were fully present for them. One of my favourite parts of the day actually happened before we even started the movie. The children immediately stepped into their own imaginary world. They were pretending to buy tickets, deciding where everyone should sit, helping each other find seats for their teddies, and talking about what snacks belonged at the cinema. Without everyone directing the play, they'd created an entire experience together. That's why I love roleplay so much. Roleplay gives children the opportunity to communicate, negotiate, solve problems, and develop confidence, all while believing they're simply having fun. These are the moments that often have the biggest impact on children's learning because they're completely engaged and the learning happens naturally. It also reminded me why I believe boredom isn't something we should be afraid of. We often hear adults say they don't want children to be bored. But I've found that boredom is usually the point where creativity begins. When we don't rush to provide the next activity, children start creating their own. They begin asking questions, inventing games, and finding possibilities that we probably wouldn't have thought of ourselves. If you're a parent watching this, I really hope this takes a little bit of pressure off. I know it can feel like there's so much expectation to keep children entertained all the time. Social media can make it look like every day needs to be filled with elaborate activities and expensive resources, but it really doesn't. Some of the richest learning happens when children are given time, space, and the freedom to lead their own play. Sometimes the most meaningful thing we can do is to simply sit alongside them, join in when we're invited, and let their imagination do the rest. I don't think we've made childhood more complicated because we don't care. I actually think it's because we care too much. We all want to give children the very best. Parents want to create wonderful memories. Educators want to provide meaningful experiences. Somewhere along the way, I think we've started believing that more automatically means better. But children don't measure childhood by how much money we spend or how elaborate our plans are. They measure it by how they feel. Looking around our little cinema, I realised it wasn't really the movie that had made the day special. It was everything that happened beforehand. The conversations, the excitement, the pretending, and the shared experience were the parts that mattered most. Over the years, that's become one of the biggest lessons I've learnt. Children don't need us to create perfect childhoods. They need us to create meaningful ones. Sometimes that looks like a special excursion, and sometimes it looks like a few blankets on the lounge room floor. Neither is more valuable than the other if the children are engaged, connected, and making memories together. As I packed everything away at the end of the day, the blankets went back in the cupboard, the cushions found their way back onto the lounge, and the room looked exactly as it had in the morning. But the memories we created didn't disappear when we packed everything away. They'll stay with the children far longer than the cushions or the blankets ever will. I think that's a really lovely reminder for all of us. We don't have to create perfect childhoods. We just have to create meaningful ones. I hope today's diary entry is a reminder that simple doesn't mean less meaningful. In fact, some of the biggest memories are created through the smallest moments. A blanket can be a cubby, a stick can be a magic wand, a lounge room can become a cinema. Childhood has a wonderful way of turning ordinary moments into extraordinary memories. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. If you enjoyed today's diary entry, I'd love to have you follow along here at the Family Daycare Diaries, where we celebrate the real moments, the meaningful lessons, and the magic found in everyday childhood. Until next time, take it slow, embrace play, and don't forget to look for the magic in the everyday.